for today's webinar, Converge 2015 Recap. My name is Ann Olson, and I'm the founder of Converge Consulting. Over the past 5 years, we've had the opportunity to work with over 100 colleges and universities in the marketplace. I'm delighted to be presenting today's webinar with Megan, who's a Vice President of Content at Converge.
Hi, everybody. Being a Vice President at Converge, that means I get to lead exciting inbound marketing projects and content development for new websites and innovative marketing campaigns. Really excited to join in for this recap and to talk through some of the highlights from our conference.
And just in case you missed us, we had a really great time at Converge 2015 in New Orleans. It feels like it was just days ago. These are some of our team members who joined us, as well as our clients. We had over 200 participants, higher ed leaders from across the world who joined us in not only a fabulous content session, but also a great parade down Bourbon Street and an amazing dinner lab. So for those of you who were there, thank you. We had a phenomenal time, and we learned just a tremendous amount. And if you weren't there, you'll have to join us for our fun next year when we head to California. On with the content. So over the 3 days in New Orleans that we had hosted Converge 2015, there were 5 major trends that really came to play in the marketplace as a recap of the work and of the sessions. Number 1, higher education is embracing inbound. Higher education leaders across the country are aware of what inbound marketing is, and they're starting to make some major progress on their campus in relation to doing inbound projects and ingratiating themselves in that inbound strategy. Point number 2, personas. Personas were the most well-attended sessions at our conference. People loved learning more about what a persona is and how you can use that persona in order to drive your marketing strategy. Point number 3, search is changing big time. We heard from a number of industry leaders who are focused on search engine optimization, and they talked us through a number of those things that not only Google's changing, but also ways in which to future-proof your SEO. Point number 4, content is strategic. We spent a great deal of time learning about how to create strategic content, as well as tools that you can use in order to be more strategic with your content. And the last point, of course, rounding everything out, is measurement matters. So we did a deep dive with representatives from Google, as well as several institutions that talked about how they were measuring the success of their efforts on campus. These are the 5 major trends that were covered during our conference that I know you will find interesting and relevant to the work you're doing on your campus that we plan to cover today. This is being recorded. We will send the recording out afterwards in case you want to share this with any of the members of your campus community. If you do have questions, feel free to type those into the question box, and Megan and I will be sure and address those. So trend number 1, higher education is embracing and doing a great job of rolling out inbound marketing. We were really lucky to have Terry Flannery, the Vice President of Communications from American University, speak at our conference. She keynoted our second day and talked a lot about the work that she had done in American in getting her campus to support a new inbound digital game plan. Over the past few years at American, Terry has done not only a phenomenal job with branding and with their new brand, the Wonk, but she's also focused on enrollment and enrollment growth and how to work more closely with different schools in order to increase graduate enrollment. So the marketing game plan that American and Converge have been working on over the past few years has really looked at a couple of key components. The first one being the embracing of Google Universal Analytics and setting those up on all of their websites. The recent adoption of a CRM tool that's used across their university. Piloting 4 graduate programs with true inbound marketing efforts. These programs were all within the College of Arts and Science, but very different programs, from public anthropology to audio technology. Definitely a different recruitment target and geography. American engaged 3 partners and a governing group to make this happen across their campus, as well as a project manager. The big focus was evaluating how it worked, and it did work, and that's why we're so excited to share this case study with you. And to assess what is core and what can be outsourced. And Terry shared some great examples of things that definitely can be outsourced and things that were core to the fundamentals of them making this happen and this rollout happen on campus. American is now succeeded with the launch of their 4 pilot graduate programs, and they are scaling up and moving into the next 6. So we'll be happy to share those examples as well.
Anne gave you guys kind of a high-level view of what Terry covered during the session. We wanted to get into some more detail. She shared some great examples of how they made inbound work on their campus. So this is one of the personas that Terry shared, the world changer. And this was specifically for their public anthropology student, one of those 4 pilot programs that Ian mentioned. We also created personas for creative writing, health promotion management, and audio technology, the 4 very diverse audience spaces that these 4 pilot programs have covered. The next step in the strategy was really to segment messaging out by audience while keeping, as you'll see in the blue, kind of key messaging points that have resonated across the campus, across the College of Arts and Sciences. Terry had shared an example of how the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences was helping roll out continuing messaging with this same segmentation across the college, even beyond the 4 pilot programs. And that consistency in messaging really carried over into their strategy for building a streamlined process for inquiry pool. This is the landing page design that was put in place, a great inbound marketing strategy with 4 kind of key fields. The American team set up a conversion-focused design to boost inquiries and really see the students through their digital enrollment journey. In addition to the landing pages, the pilot project also involved program pages, a nice fresh redesign that's optimized for mobile, understanding that students are searching in different ways on different platforms. Many students, again, search by program, so we focused the efforts on each academic program page. That means leads land on this program page before they even get to know your brand sometimes. So we created key touch points with Terry's team to make sure that the content was refreshed and that design was optimized for mobile. And another huge piece and a huge success of the inbound pilot that Terry shared during her presentation was the new blog. So for each pilot program, an academic blog was set up, a category, over under an overarching College of Arts and Sciences blog. All of these posts have generated great inbound links to the program pages and really help optimizing their on-page and off-page SEO strategy. In follow-up to those 3 pieces we just shared, the landing page, program page, and blogs, a huge success that Terry and her team have found is really being able to leverage their tools like Recruiter, Ellucian Recruiter, to automate some of that post-inquiry and post-application follow-up, while also integrating the all-important human touch points. So a recruiter communications map was put in place, and they successfully rolled this out across the 4 pilot programs, and we'll be continuing that as they embark on phase 2 of their pilot journey.
So let's talk a little bit about the results and lessons learned. As far as wins, the faculty loved the personas. There were faculty members from 4 very different programs, as Megan mentioned, from public anthropology to public health management to audio technology and creative writing. And the faculty felt like these personas were a really good tool to be able to use to get everyone on the same page in relation to consistent messaging, that whether they were writing new web content or they were creating a phone script, that they had the ability to use those personas. Her staff was incredibly motivated and empowered. As we went through this pilot program with them in relation to inbound, they really took the lead and were pretty excited about the things they were able to accomplish, especially as you look at the results and the data. The message matrix made the CRM more powerful and efficient. So as you had seen the workflows that were created, those were used across all programs, but the ability to customize those based on the message matrix made everything more tangible and made it more efficient and effective. The program and landing pages made the redesign of other pages easier. So because American did not have the opportunity to redesign their entire website, we started with a program page and a landing page redesign. They have utilized that template across other programs, and it has made not only the mobile optimization piece has converted a tremendous amount of inquiries into leads, but it has definitely made the redesign and rethinking of their entire program pages and website a lot easier. Now on to the fun. The leads for the 4 pilot programs are up 88% over the same time last year. So due to this investment of time and resources and changing philosophy and strategy, they have seen tremendous, tremendous results. The program pages, so those pages with content on the specific programs, account for over a third of their new leads. And the landing pages that are we're driving digital advertising to account for 34% of their leads. So this is really exciting. This tells us that this content worked, that we have great visibility into the data as far as what worked, and we know that people are raising their hand and following through and filling out those forms once they hit both of these pages, which are results of all the different content that we've driven to these points. We're able to begin retargeting. So the pilot's only been live for 60 days, but we're already being able to retarget some of that lead volume due to the large numbers. Applications started are up 34%. Who doesn't want to hear that statistic? So that's really, really exciting for these 4 programs at American. The deans and program directors are lining up to be next. That's per Terry. We're actually launching into 6 new pilot programs within the next month. So 4 have made their way and being incredibly successful, and the next 6 are lining up to move through a similar process. The case management systems, internal and external, are a little too new to evaluate, so there's some additional time that we'll need to spend on those. But I think the huge win is that we have really great data. We have a great strategy in place that has led to some specific results. So as you can see here, at the same point in time last year for those 4 programs, there were 109 prospects. This year, same point in time, 250. More applications started. Their application deadline is in a few weeks, so we know that this application submitted number will be going up and completed as well. And I think that the real important thing to point out is that as you look at the origin source of these leads, the landing page that generated traffic from digital advertising campaigns drove a number of these leads, but the program page that was organic SEO and blog posts and true inbound marketing activities drove even more new leads to their program. Next, we'll talk about a bit of a different school. Bentley University has embraced inbound marketing, and they've been at it a little longer. Val Fox and Jeff Wright and their team there has just done an amazing job of looking at how can they take their president's vision and bring this to life through the work that they're doing with inbound marketing. As they talked about the Prepared University, they spent a lot of time defining and determining what is the message that they want to share, what is the topic that they want to own in the marketplace. And so Bentley has spent a lot of time on focusing their efforts on how does the preparation that happen at Bentley prepare career graduates for their life and their success after college. So it was one of the things that they had talked about was doing some audience research to better understand what does preparedness mean in the marketplace. And so with both different parents and business decision makers and high school students, they have a lot of qualitative data that talks about that preparedness. But they also look at skills and what are those things that really contribute to preparedness overall. As they went to move this message into the marketplace and focus on how they were going to get this out, their content was very broad. So they utilized a lot of different formats to be able to communicate what Prepared You meant to Bentley and why it was important to audiences. Everything from white papers and ebooks to alumni magazine articles, infographics, videos, and live event programming. So truly looking at generating great strategic content that was directly linked to Prepared You as a message. 4 phases over 18 months. So they went in and they started with that focus on millennials being prepared. Phase 2 really focused on moving into women in the workplace. Phase 3 is millennials at work, and phase 4 getting millennials ready to work. So as you can see, looking at everyone from the recruited student, so that student who we're trying to prepare, to some of the information that audiences might be interested in, such as employers getting millennials ready to work. The results have been unbelievable. So year over year in media impressions, with their content amplification and the work they've done, they've seen a 400% growth in media impressions, with some pretty notable and big news sources. When you look at the marketing ecosystem, the Prepared You content really spanned across 4 key areas. So they focused on how do we get Prepared You out with paid media, with owned media, so some of those properties that they already have, through their social platforms and other influencer social platforms, as well as earned media. So those are the 4 components that they focused on from a media strategy. And their goal, again, was more so getting Bentley University's name out and owning that message of Prepared You in the marketplace. These are just some of the different content formats and channels. And one of the things that they did really well was content syndication and social amplification. So looking at what tools can they use in order to get this content out past their primary platforms. And there's definitely a webinar follow-up. Val Fox and Jeff Wright did a webinar last week for us. It's recorded and on our website, convergeconsulting.org. If anyone's interested in more details on their story, that's a great place to visit. It's about 45 minutes and covers a lot more detail about their journey. Results year over year, they've had a growth in year over year visits of 600%. And 85% of that traffic's been from new users. And the reason why this is important is you think about generating more inquiries into your inquiry pool, as you think about recruiting new faculty members, as you think about influencing guidance counselors and parents, and thinking about overall reach and impression of your university, that brand matters. And having a giant increase of new users to your website to really engage in and see much of this great content was really important to them, and I think something that is really helping to demonstrate their results overall and their success.
So now that we've covered the first kind of key highlight of the Converge 2015 conference, we wanted to jump in and celebrate all the great information we heard on personas and how they're driving strategy. This picture is actually from the UST Houston session called My Imaginary Friends. We had the pleasure of having Sandy Solis and Brenda Cooper from their campus talk through how they've leveraged personas and how the tool has helped them create segmented messaging that really puts their prospective student first. So from Washington, D.C. graduate programs at American to undergraduate admissions teams and marketing teams from UST Houston, we've had a great range of schools represented at the conference.
And I think what's exciting about these personas is that any type of school can work on personas, whether you're focused on alumni engagement or prospective student recruitment.
This slide's great that Sandy and Brenda put together. It really gives a high-level definition of what a persona means, and they've shared this common understanding and knowledge across all the key stakeholders that have helped them roll out their persona strategy. So a persona is a fictional sketch of an audience segment based on demographics, behavior, and really incorporates an understanding of their motivations and challenges. So personas are the tool that help us really think through the users who are interacting with our digital content and the students that we see face-to-face on campus every day. Brenda and Sandy also shared a slide on how to use personas, so making it very clear what the objective is for the rollout of their project. They talked about developing web content, restructuring existing content, outlining brand messages, and also just creating talking points for brainstorming and sharing of ideas with their internal teams. So personas can really be great tools to help build consensus across multiple departments, across different programs, and really helps your core marketing teams who are creating the messages for your student to have a great understanding of what's going to resonate most with them.
And I think they also help you to say no to some of those opportunities. Should we, advertise in the newspaper? Personas allow you that opportunity to focus and make sure that you are on strategy with every interaction with your audience.
There is also a common understanding at UST that Sandy and Brenda shared for the need of personas. So why we were developing these tools, why we're putting them in place. They really just help all team members, all content creators, anyone who has a stake in generating digital content or speaking face-to-face with students to more strategically talk to their audiences, to remind themselves that, our marketing jargon, although very familiar for us, doesn't always communicate the messages we need to our prospective students. So the user personas really help them put their student first and focus on that messaging and how to solve problems for them as human beings. This is just one of the several examples that they shared. What I love most about their session is that Brenda and Sandy really brought cardboard cutouts of each of these personas. And like Anne was saying, typically personas are fictional representations, but these are actually photos of real students. So UST took a kind of combined approach that worked best for them. So Ideal Jamie is a real student with some fictional qualities, but she represents that key target audience for their community. The ideal student for UST is faithful, well-prepared to succeed in college, and always looking for ways to make a difference in the world. They also brought first-gen Karina. So Karina represented another portion of their key demographics. She's the first of her family to go to college, so she's going to need a little bit more help in managing her responsibilities and throughout the enrollment process. She needs more communication. She's a little bit more reserved, and she's very busy. So understanding the differences between Ideal Jamie and First Gen Karina and how the recruitment process, the marketing communications we put out to these students should vary based on their specific needs.
And the great thing is personas can be used from not only a prospective student recruitment perspective, but also throughout that first year experience in communicating with those audiences while on campus.
And the third, and actually the last persona that Sandy and Brenda brought to their presentation was Pre-Health Tina. So she's the pre-professional student who knows she's going to continue her education. So the messages that we communicate to her might be different than the things that Karina or Jamie are interested in hearing. We already understand that Tina's great with time management, highly organized, and very invested in herself and her education. So the process looks a little bit different for her. And this is just a high-level view of all the personas they've created. Experts will tell you that 3 to 5 user personas at a high level are a good best practice. And Brenda and Sandy joked that they were able to whittle theirs down to 14. There's a lot of different audiences represented on your campuses. So the whole idea is to just get started, think through the key target audiences that you want to communicate with, and really get out there and start segmenting that messaging to, again, help with marketing communication, with building consistency across different departments, and using personas to really get key messages out to your students.
UNC Chapel Hill and their business program is another school who's done a great job with development of personas. And as they look at targeting prospective MBA students, one of the things that they did to help them truly understand the audience of who that person was for their personas was to read their admissions essays. And I thought that was a great way to really get to the heart of what are those students' fears, what are those students' dreams, what are their desires, and can we place those students into different types of buckets based on the needs and the desires that they have.
And this is just a persona template we wanted to share with you all. We shared this during our content strategy post-conference. So if you're looking to dive into personas, or maybe you already have, this is just a high-level view of a place to start. So you'll want to describe their demographics, identify their goals, think through background and challenges. What are the pain points, and what are the professional and educational experience like for this different audiences? We like to personalize personas with highlights of their behaviors and habits. So what are their hobbies and interests? What unique personality traits do they have? I love how Brenda and Sandy really tied in this piece of the personalization factor to their personas for UST Houston. Another important piece of a persona is thinking through where we want to meet our students online. So what websites are they on? What social media channels do they use? And who influences their decision making? Who has a say in their process? And how do we need to communicate to those audiences? And last but not least, we like to include something on key information. So why are they looking at the website? What are they looking for? And thinking through information that first gen Karina might be interested in as opposed to pre-health Tina. So understanding that the information that they're seeking on the website and the way they enter the website is often different.
Personas are a great first strategy piece of your inbound marketing, and thinking about how you can take and create these personas and then use them through your digital advertising strategy, your content development, your core messaging, your emails, your phone calls, and every other communication that you have.
And we also wanted to share with you a free resource if you're just getting started or want to start brainstorming personas at more of a high level. HubSpot has a persona generator that's a really great starting point for these things. It's makemypersona.com. You can upload pictures, walk through a persona. It's a really great starting point as you're thinking about brainstorming your own personas.
Excellent. So we've talked about a couple of successful schools who have done some great work. We've talked about the very first strategy, making your personas. The third element that we want to talk about and recap is talking about search engine optimization. And as we mentioned, search is changing in an unbelievable way. This is a photo of Matthew Brown from Moz, who had the opportunity to present at our conference. And Megan's on the right, Andy's on the left, chatting with Matthew. But Matthew had amazing things to share with us. Moz, and it's M-O-Z, is probably the best search engine optimization resource and tool that you can come across. And if you haven't done a lot of work on SEO, definitely Google Moz, find their website. There are a ton of great resources there. But we want to talk a little bit further about what Matthew had to share at our conference. One of the biggest things that he talked about in relation to Google and finding information was the way in which Google's interface has changed. So this is an example of a search engine results page. And what we're going to see in the future as people enter words into Google, all of a sudden it won't just be a definition from Wiki or a listing of websites, but going forward, what we're going to see is more content that is easily usable at an immediate point in time. So Google knows when people Google taco, what they're looking for is a place to eat taco. So where are the closest taco joints from where I am geographically? They're wanting to look at images to figure out what a taco looks like. They're interested in nutrition facts, and they're interested in more detailed information. So the way in which search is changing is bringing to the forefront user information that immediately gets someone to a recipe, to a location, or more information about that content. And why this is important to higher education is you think about specific content on your website. When someone Googles University of Iowa campus visit or University of Iowa, what might come to the page is how to sign up for a visit, a virtual tour of that campus visit, the directions to that campus, and more information than just the university's URL. So as you think about optimizing for your website in organic search, this is a better example of what search engine results pages are going to look like in the future. Just to talk a little bit further about Google and SEO, most of the world's search traffic comes through Google. And I'm sure as you think about the number of times a day in which you Google information, you realize that it is a major authoritative search to get you to information that you need. Over the past few years, Google has went through a number of updates from Panda and Penguin to Hummingbird. And the big key takeaway from our conference is that there is not just one Google algorithm for search. So there's not one way in which to future-proof your SEO by knowing what the algorithm is and being able to optimize for it. So as you think about best practices for SEO moving forward, really the goal is to answer questions. So Google constantly is testing and looking at what information is most valuable to people as they do searches. And they're continuing to do those A/B tests, and whichever information is of most interest, Google is rewarding that content because it is providing the answers those users want. So we're going to talk a little bit further about what makes effective SEO strategy and how you can help do that for your own website.
So Matt shared this slide on advice for content and SEO, and you can see he also included a YouTube link there with kind of more detail on this. But when you're thinking about your site checklist and how you're optimizing, you want to make sure you have the unique factor. So your content is original, it's different, and it's representative of the things that you want to be known for. So answering those questions: who are you? Why you? And of course, thinking about the user first. So understanding how students are going to locate your college or university or your programs even, and making sure your content is optimized. Of course, you want to do things like blogging, leaning into alerting your viewers and putting out fresh content to pull them in. But it's not so simple anymore, and we'll go over some of the information that Matt shared over the next few slides.
Excellent. And I think one of the key drivers of why we talked about personas and inbound strategy first, before talking about SEO, is that those personas should drive the content that you're creating. And immediately addressing who that audience is and what they want to know when they're there will help you show up better in Google search. Also, as Megan mentioned, keeping a blog and providing that student perspective and answering those questions those students have or your key audiences have is a big aspect of good SEO.
So this is just one of the slides that Matt shared during his presentation. He kept referring to this phenomenon called the content glut and the myth that quantity is the answer for search engine optimization when it comes to content. And maybe it was in the past, but now, like Anne was saying, it's really about creating content that your users are looking for, embracing an inbound methodology that really pulls them to your website and gives them the quality content that they expect to receive there.
Absolutely. It's no longer about how many published pages can you have on your website. It's more about how can I get the user the information they want as soon as they hit my website and that they can find it.
And Matt shared a lot of great data points during his presentation, but I love this number. 2.5 million blog posts are created daily. So it really kind of diminishes the argument that quantity is going to get you where you want to be, because there's a sea of information and a sea of content online. So the best way to optimize your content to make sure that students are finding the information you want them to hear about your institution is to be thoughtful, to own your brand, own your story, and produce quality content that's optimized. And this is just, again, a little bit of data that shows that roughly 70% of content marketers reported that they're creating more content in response to the content glut. But like Matt said during his presentation, what we need to do is be more strategic. There's two different worlds of content strategy and SEO, and we need to think about ways that we can address our targeted audiences with the content that they're looking for at the merger of those two different worlds. So 67% of marketers deem blog posts or articles as the most effective content format because it really meets students in their inquiry phase, in their search phase, thinking of information that they're interested in hearing about your institution, or even just serving as a resource. Blogs are more casual, and they give students the opportunity to really see a more human side to the institutional brand. Another key takeaway from Matt's session was that social media sharing is becoming a huge part of this process. So this just shows that social media platform usage is skyrocketing. I think we all kind of know that, but making sure that we understand how social media plays a part in amplifying our content. It's becoming increasingly popular for distribution, and if we're creating all of this great content, how are we getting that message and those pieces of information out to our target audiences? Because we can't assume that they'll always come straight to us anymore. There's a lot of different channels competing for their attention. So making sure we have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, understanding what our students are looking for and meeting them where they are.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big takeaways is having a strategic social media plan. So looking at, we've created these great blog posts, we've created this great content. Who are the audiences that can help us use this? And who are the influencers who can help us share this content?
And again, so much great data from Moz. They're a great resource for this sort of research and information. But Matt shared that Facebook accounts for 25% of social traffic. And you see approximately 1.3 million shares per minute with that volume of users. It's a huge number, and it can be great visibility for content if you're amplifying on these channels. But what's important to think about is, are your students there? What we see more and more is that younger generations, undergraduate populations, are moving toward newer social media channels. So making sure that we're spending our time wisely with the understanding that certain social channels have more of a breadth of an audience than others. One of my favorite takeaways from Matt's session on content strategy and SEO was his recommendation to all schools to try branded content. So we know digital advertising, we know about paid media, but there's this great new tool that a lot of established brands like the Times, Washington Post are offering this ability to promote your stories. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. So these high traffic sites like BuzzFeed and The Atlantic are offering this prime real estate on their web pages for what we're referring to as branded content. It's something worth looking into, and I encourage colleges and universities to really be strategic in placing ads for their blog posts, for their articles, for key information that they want to disseminate out to new audiences.
It's a great way to reach influencers. It's a great way to get very specific with your targeting, with messages that they care about.
And this was just, again, a data point that he shared. With that content glut, that phenomenon that quantity is the answer, visibility is becoming so important. So marketers are making the shift to incorporating branded content into kind of their regimen of distribution. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be an A/B test. Try out and see what works for you, what channels you can afford in your budget. But making sure that you're thinking through off-page SEO tactics like this to really reach new audiences with your content. And Matt wrapped up his session with some great takeaways, just talking about how we're out with the old. So the old way of thinking about SEO was really to get all the links you could and all the shares to your one hub, your website, to your page. It was all about generating those off-page links. And what we're realizing is that it's not sustainable. It used to be that we wanted to get everyone to our hub, but marketers were always asking, how can we make a bigger impact? So what Matt said, and what we found very intelligent, kind of a good assumption of a good summary of this information, was that we have to think about SEO differently. So publish content to the stream, not just to your links. So don't try to force an off-page link relationship with an influencer. Create a lot of content, understand where your personas are, where your target audiences are, and identify the channels and streams that work for them. So think about it as dissemination of content across different areas, not about just pushing a lot of information out to one source so that they'll push it back to your website. And Matt explained that the goal is no longer as micro as likes or shares or links. Social media strategy is super important, but our ultimate goal is beyond that. So we have to think about creating with a goal in mind. And Matt said that Moz, for instance, has the goal of loyalty. So building return visitors to their website. They are measuring how their content that they're creating is boosting those return visits. So they know that if they're seen as a thought leader in search engine optimization and content strategy, they'll see an uptick in return visits to their website. And they actually found that certain types of content help them reach that goal. So creating blogs actually help build brand loyalty because people want to come back and see what else you know. They're interested in the information you're sharing. Followed closely by, of course, news and tools. So understanding that you have to put the user first. You have to think about your prospective students and what information they're going to be looking for on your website and serve as a resource for them.
This also helps you think about that user experience and the user path as you think about attracting someone from the point of coming to your website for the first time and then becoming an inquiry, and how you can continue to keep them engaged. And as Megan said, blogs are one key feature that allow you the opportunity to create new content and follow great SEO rules with building awareness, but also in working on that engagement phase.
And just to wrap up with Matt's kind of big takeaway at the end of his session that we found really enlightening was that we all need to think about SEO and content projects. They're very important. We want to make sure that we're constantly optimizing to see results, but the reality is that it can take 12 to 17 months to see the real traction, whether that's inquiries, applicants, return visits. This is really the top of the funnel stuff. So getting those inquiries to your website, you'll see an uptick in traction and traffic and organic search. But what you need to know and the true tell of those efforts will come in the long term.
Absolutely. Now I just want to share a quick example from Northwest Nazarene University. They have done a fabulous job, Zach Vineyard and his team at NNU, of being incredibly strategic with content. So if you go to their website, you'll see a number of different blogs that they've created for their business program, for their undergraduate students, for their MDiv program. And each one of these blogs is based on a persona. So it's based on that audience that they want to attract. All of the blogs are driven from keyword research and from creation of stories and telling of stories that are important to their institution and consistent with their messages. So as we worked with NNU and talked to NNU about their SEO strategy, we focused on a couple of things: on-page and off-page optimization. So on-page, looking at, was their site set up the right way? Is their information architecture friendly? Is their content on their pages optimized for Google? Off-page factors, we also looked at how are they building that content amplification process? How are they building those links, that trust, that social presence, and how are they helping content amplification to take place? So as we think about on-page content, these are the most important things that NNU focused on. So the quality of their content, it being well written and having good substantial quality. The research, did they use keywords in their content strategically for those things people are searching about? Do the pages use the words and phrases that someone wants to be found? Are we calling things consistently the same thing that our audiences are? Engagement time, so how much time are people spending on their site? We were looking at Americans' Google Analytics, and the average time on site is between 8 and 9 minutes on American universities' blogs. That user engagement time is 3 times what most sites have as far as in engagement time for a website visit. So are your blogs, is your content keeping people engaged and keeping them on your site? And then fresh, are you talking about new things that are relevant to the marketplace? One of Americans' blogs that they wrote was on entrepreneurship, looking at how authors are entrepreneurs now. A very hot topic in relation to what's going on in the world of creative writing. So thinking through those things and making sure as you build on-page content that you're looking at those. And then NNU did a great job of following the Coke strategy. So focusing on creating once and publishing everywhere. And as Megan showed you, that kind of world of not necessarily bringing everyone to your website, but getting that content out in the marketplace, this is what's helped them to receive most of the success that they've had over the last year. Their goals and volume with NNU, in 1 year, they created 110 stories across 16 sites and 10 content themes. And I think one of the most important things they did was to create themes for those stories. So all of those stories focused on one of their 10 content themes, things that were important that they had done research on, they knew were consistent with their brand, but were also important to their audience. Their increase in social reach was 51%. So they looked at year-over-year data and looked at engagement metrics. They have phenomenal data that's really helpful to share some of the success of their strategy overall. As we mentioned, they had 10 themes over 12 months that focused on all of the content, from the branded focus to usable content ideas to practical enrollment ideas and ROI. And what they saw was a 25% increase in their organic search traffic year over year. So this is pretty exciting that their overall website activity has increased by 25% with engaged users searching for specific things as they come to their website. So definitely a great investment of time and resources, and they have a ton of data that supports why they had record enrollment last year and why this has worked well for them.
So we've covered inbound marketing and how higher education is engaging in these efforts. We've talked about SEO and user personas and how they're really driving strategy. The next key takeaway from our conference and from the sessions from industry experts as well as campus experts that really resonated was that content is strategic. There's tools and processes in place that help us cope, that help us create once, publish everywhere. Margot Bloom's team was a great industry speaker that we had at our conference of Appropriate Inc. She really helped us define content strategy. And for someone like me who works in this on a daily basis, it was a really enlightening session because she gave us tools and tips for building consensus around who we are, who we aren't, and who we want to be when it comes to the institutional brand. This definition that Margot shared, I think, is one of the best summaries I've seen of what content strategy truly means. So she shared this definition, which I think is important for us to understand that content strategy is more than copywriting. It's a little bit of anyone's job who's involved in marketing. So content strategy is planning for the creation, aggregation, delivery, and governance of useful, usable, and appropriate content and an experience. She kicked off her session just highlighting some of the great and wonderful things about content. So it demands attention because words are important. It's the essence of our story, and that's why there's so much stake in making sure we use the right words. We're telling the what, why, and how of your college or university. Margot also mentioned, and that I think we all kind of experience this as we work in content, that it requires a lot of time and care. There's an effort to building a strategic story, to telling the right story to those personas. So it demands attention from our users, but it also demands planning and attention from the creators. So our marketing teams, our content people, to make sure we're telling the right stories. And a little bit on the other side of things, it also can dredge up politics. So words are powerful and meaningful, and of course, they can as easily unite us. They can also cause conflict or cause rifts. So it's why they're so important. It's why we have to spend time thinking about our story and making sure we're communicating the messages that our audiences are going to resonate with. And this was a great slide that Margot shared. It might be my favorite from her presentation. She said to the audience, this is your job now. So as marketers, as digital marketers, it's our job to understand our brand and how it's perceived online. It's our job to tell the story, to get the right students on our campuses, to motivate our alumni and donors to contribute to that story, and of course to build awareness for our brand. So what was the real lesson there? Margot suggests that words are valuable and important, but in the same token, they're meaningless without context and priority. So we can create a lot of content, we can go for quantity, but what does it matter if nobody receives that message? So we've got to have tools and processes in place for content strategy to truly be successful. One of the many tools that Margot shared, and I'm sure many of you are hopefully using, is the editorial calendar. So tools like this are one of the most important tools that we can have in our toolkits. The NNU example that Anne shared earlier with themes across 10 months is really a perfect example of content strategy done right. So using that editorial calendar to articulate those key messages and plan out themes to take some of the heavy lifting off the team, because content can take a lot of time, but the more organized we are, the more efficient we'll be. Another tool that Margot shared during our session was the content matrix, which is very modular that just kind of lends itself to that COPE methodology for content. So it'll make sure that the right message is going to the right place and that those personas we outline are really receiving the messages that they need to hear. It also helps with governance of our overarching brand message as different departments are publishing content across campus. Having a content matrix really helps us stay on the same page. And an activity that you might want to try with your teams is a message architecture building session. So getting key team members together and stakeholders in a room and really workshopping your brand values and messaging. If lately you feel like the content you're producing is missing the mark, or you're looking to generate new inquiries, this could be a great kind of exercise to do with your team. You'll want to separate things out into 3 categories: who we are, who we're not, and who we want to be. And write down kind of all the words you use to describe yourself, and then put them into those categories. It seems to be a very helpful exercise to get everyone on the same page and make sure that we're really telling our story the way that our users want to hear it.
This is a great example, and we'll lean back on Michael Shinelli from UNC Chapel Hill, who gave a presentation and talked about some of their work with inbound marketing. And they've done a great job with their blog series on talking about why specifically an MBA is important, what the role of their school is in providing that value, really looking at joining their community and getting connected. So they have a variety of content across their blogs, from the ROI of an MBA, for someone early on in that process thinking about, is this valuable to me, to how to compare MBA programs. So some really helpful, useful tools, things we know people are Googling all the time and interested in learning about. So a great example. They're also mobile optimized and for both tablet and mobile devices, and really great resources as far as a best practice. They've also done a good job with amplification. So when you look on any social channel that you're following them on, or that you know someone who's connected with, they've done a great job of creating once and publishing their blogs everywhere, focusing on that amplification piece and how to get the word out.
And Zach from NNU actually shared some great ideas for reusing content for coping. So these next two slides are from that session that we talked about earlier. But making sure, again, you're sharing that same story across multiple themes to increase engagement. Looking at ways that you can save time from your team, but still get the message out there. We know we're all very busy, so these are just some great tools and tips to keep in mind as you think about sharing your story across multiple formats and channels. And another great thing that Zach and his team have put into practice is recycling content. So looking at stories that happen every year. You probably know by now that a lot of the campus events that take place are annual or by semester. So keeping a calendar of that information and understanding how to repurpose and reuse that information on an annual basis to save time. Mining content from your students and faculty. They're doing great research and possibly publishing out on different platforms. So just making sure you have kind of a handle on all the information that's out there and how you can recycle it to make great new content.
Absolutely. Universities and colleges are content rich. I really do think that in the future we will see a chief content officer as a role at a university because there's so much content that you're creating that is of interest to answer some questions that people have. And I think one of my favorite ideas is doing a where they're at now update, using those great student stories from when students were students and looking at what they're doing now and really continuing to profile them. So taking the old and kind of flipping it on its head and making it new again. The last topic that we're going to chat about is measurement. And Krista Seiden from Google had shared a lot of great information on measurement and a number of trends in relation to Google Analytics. Most of the measurement that was discussed at our conference is really focused on the measurement in relation to your website. Shelby Thayer from Penn State Online gave a great presentation, and if you don't know Shelby, she's definitely someone to follow on LinkedIn and to connect with. She really leads the analytics and marketing efforts at Penn State and doing a lot of web measurement with their online area. Shelby had talked about the landscape as far as what's happening with analytics. So we know that universal analytics has become important. It's become something that allows better visibility across a variety of channels. If you aren't on universal analytics, make sure that you talk to your webmaster and you have a strategy for transitioning to universal analytics. She talked about the importance of measurement and what we're trying to measure and why we needed to measure. And as we think about marketers, as we think about being enrollment driven, focused on alumni engagement overall, we need to measure because it's important to understand how we're investing our time and resources. And then she talked about campaign measurement. And if we're evaluating a campaign, how to evaluate that campaign. So looking at how it can be effective, what techniques we should use, the types of evaluation we should do, and then attribution. Oftentimes there are multiple sources that relate to a specific activity. So as we think about attribution overall, thinking about maybe someone comes to my website through a mobile device. It's an organic search through SEO. They find me on a blog through content marketing, and then I follow up through a series of emails after they've inquired, and that tracking throughout that entire life cycle is what's important and what we want to ultimately have visibility to. So setting up a framework that will allow us that visibility is really important from the beginning. And as you think about the measuring of marketing campaigns and optimizing your website, the whole goal is to improve. So understanding metrics and how they can help you be more strategic and how they can make your user have a better experience is the entire aspect of utilizing Google Analytics and utilizing measurement. So as we think about measuring campaign effectiveness, we think about two types of goals, the micro goal and the macro goal. So that micro goal might be getting someone to your website to read about your school or majors, watch a video, use your tuition estimator, call admissions, fill out a request for information form. Ultimately, the macro goal is getting them to visit, apply, and enroll. So as we think about determining what those smaller goals are that lead up to the bigger ones, it's important that we establish tracking mechanisms for all of these. One of our best practices was in relation to standardizing parameters. So as you're thinking about creating campaigns that you're tracking those URLs and creating a common structure is really important. Shelby had shared some parameter labels that should be exactly the same. So she shared some tools with a URL builder, as well as the Terminus app. And if you have time, definitely check those out and see if you can build some consistency across the work that you're doing in order to help and aid with measurement. Shelby looked at some of the other things that we should be thinking about and measuring as we build dashboards and we build campaign tracking. So we absolutely want to understand where people are entering our site and where they're clicking through and to. We want to understand our bounce rate when people leave our site from that first page visit. We want to understand how they're converting. We want to understand our traffic and who are new versus old users. We want to understand how many pages people are viewing per session and the average session duration. So not only does this help us to understand what activities are being completed, but it also helps us understand engagement. For example, one of the schools that we're working with has set an engagement goal of they want someone to be on their site for at least 3 minutes per each session, and they want them to view at least 8 pages. That's what they've defined as important to overall measurement of engagement of their alumni. And as you think through your different campaigns, looking at those micro conversions and how those are assisting in your overall goal completion is super important. So not only do you want to focus on how do we acquire new visitors to our website and measure, but you want to look at the behavior that they engage in while they're there, and then ultimately how they convert. And the whole goal of measuring to improve, this is a great example of, they had a lot of high percentage of new sessions. However, most of the time people came to that session and they left. The engagement was low and their conversion rate was low. So what can they do better on their website to be able to more effectively reach their goals? So Shelby had kind of wrapped up with some cool just key takeaways. The goal of measurement is always to improve. Get out of Google Analytics every once in a while and go talk to your target audiences, which is incredibly helpful. It's okay not to be able to measure everything, but define and make sure that you're able to measure those things that are most important to you.
So we've covered a high level of conference recap, 5 key takeaways that we got from the Converge 2015 conference that we thought were most important to share with you. We wanted to leave you with some key takeaways to keep in mind as you think about inbound marketing, SEO, content, and measurement. Val Fox from Bentley actually shared this great slide on lessons learned, mistakes we made for you. We wanted to incorporate that here and really share with you the key takeaways that we understand to be important as we move into new projects.
Key takeaway number 1, thinking differently. Inbound marketing and digital marketing are about thinking differently. They're about thinking about your user first, not what I as an institution want to tell someone, but what that user is looking for from me. So as you think about what your marketing strategy currently is, and you think about who that persona and that user is of your audience, let's make sure that we're thinking about how to create content that is valuable to them, and we're leading them through a path that makes sense.
Don't expect to find a playbook. There's no perfect answer. There's no perfect solution. We'll show you a slide in a bit that shows the pathway to success can and should be a little messy. So Val shared that they had gone through 7 versions of different calendars, tried multiple tools, talked to several consultants. We heard that across all of our speaker presentations. You can't find a perfect playbook, but you learn along the way what works best, and you craft your own strategy.
Especially for your institution, which we know everyone's is a little bit different. Inbound methodology. This is a great slide that helps to show the journey, and it really is a journey. So focusing on your goal, we know that it may take from 3 months to 2 years to convert someone from an inquiry into that applied and accepted and matriculated student. So thinking about how you move through the inbound stages of attracting, converting, and ultimately delighting that inquiry, and the different tools that you can use throughout that process.
And another key component, a key takeaway, is to create, promote, and measure. So I think this was also from the Bentley presentation, but you'll see that tree falling in the forest reference. So we can create. We can give into that content glut and produce more content, but does it exist if nobody finds it? So where amplification kicks in and why it's so important to incorporate in your content strategy is making sure that we have an understanding of how to syndicate that content, finding channels where our audiences are to meet them with our messaging, and of course measuring that. understanding engagement, and how we can improve content moving forward.
So don't strive for perfection. Val and Jeff had some great best practices as well as Terry and a number of people from our conference. And I think that the best part about Converge 2015 was the number of people there who are trying different strategies, who had the opportunity to talk about what they thought success was going to look like and some of the things that happened along the way. If you're interested in inbound marketing stories, if you're interested in inbound marketing best practices, lessons from other people, definitely hit our website. There are a number of blogs, stories, webinars that are really helpful in learning from others' mistakes or others' challenges and how to move forward with your inbound marketing strategy.
And of course, taking all of those things into consideration, everyone at our conference encouraged the attendees to just get started, to try something, and don't be afraid to fail or to continue to measure to improve. To make sure that, like with American University, Terry and her team are piloting this inbound marketing program. So just taking a chance and understanding that getting started is really just the key goal here.
Great. And as you think through your opportunities for professional development over the next few years, February 21 through 24 in 2017, we will be in Palm Springs and have a great opportunity to, again, spend time talking about inbound marketing and digital marketing for higher education. We're looking very forward to that event. We're happy to answer any questions as we wrap up today and thank everyone for their time. One of the first questions I had is that please clarify the pilot programs are for totally new programs. Actually, the pilot programs were for existing programs. There were four. American University has 72 graduate programs, and 4 of those programs were actually in the pilot. So we'll look back at some of those numbers. But 4 of those programs that were existing programs were in that pilot, and those were the programs where the stakeholders were interested in inbound marketing, they were interested in growing enrollment, and they felt like there was a key opportunity to have pretty significant success by focusing on an inbound marketing strategy for their institution.
And 2 of their programs, the creative writing program and health promotion management program, had actually been established, I think, for close to 30 years, with 2 newer programs being launched. So it was kind of a nice A/B test to see how inbound works with new programs and promoting brand awareness for that and reestablishing kind of some traction with pre-existing programs.
Excellent. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to email us or tweet at us, and we will respond to those questions. The webinar recording will be made available within the next few days for your viewing and engagement purposes, and you're welcome to share this webinar with anyone else that you would like to. Thanks so much for your time today. It was great to have you on our webinar.